Get ready to embrace debate. First Take starts now.
Coming up on the First Take podcast, Duke or Wisconsin, which team will be a champion tonight? Plus reaction to Kentucky's loss and Andrew Harrison's post-game remarks. And could Phillip Rivers suit up for the Titans next season? All that and more coming up on the First Take podcast, which starts right now. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to First Take. We're glad to have you. Kerry Champion in studio with Skip Bayless. Stephen A. Smith, he's in Indy. Good morning, Stephen A.
Good morning. How y'all doing? How was your weekend?
Mine was great.
Stephen Naismith in Indianapolis, site of the Final Four, our college basketball expert on site. We do appreciate it.
I wouldn't call myself an expert, although I would admit I could give you some tips on that shirt that you've elected to wear, but I'm going to be nice today.
Well, what you don't understand is this is my Duke and Wisconsin shirt. See, it's got Duke and Wisconsin. Right. And also, I would also point out to our audience that once he insults my clothes, you know he will lose every debate, and he knows it in his heart of hearts. All he's got are insults today. Thank you very much for pointing that out.
Is that the go-to, Stephen A?
Yeah.
Is that the go-to, Stephen A, when you want to deflect?
But listen, you know Skip is lying because it is rare that he wears a shirt that bizarre looking. So, I mean, it's definitely an aberration.
I like this shirt, actually, and Ernestine loves this shirt. So somebody...
I was going to say, you're in trouble.
He's got to throw out Ernestine because you know I'm not going to say anything against Ernestine. See what I'm saying?
Yeah. All right, well, let's get to it. Perfect No More. The gentleman just talked about it. We'll get to that in a moment. But on the show today, we're discussing the rumors that could see Phillip Rivers in Tennessee and Marcus Mariota in San Diego. It's a rumor, again, but the discussion ahead. Plus, there's a projected poll out that says Steph Curry is the MVP on lock.
What?
Already. Again, that discussion later on in the show. But first, perfect no more. The pursuit ends at 38. The Wildcats were stopped by the Badgers 71-64. The Wildcats defense, in the end, couldn't beat the best offense in the tournament. Led by Frank Kaminsky with 20 points and 11 rebounds, while Sam Decker finished strong with several key plays in the second half. Decker, with 16 points on 6 of 9 shooting, was an active player on both ends of the court. The Badgers now have a shot of winning a national title for the first time since 1941. But before we go there, let's talk about how this loss actually happened, Stephen A. Stunned was probably the way I would describe it. But if you had to pass out some responsibility, who do you believe was responsible for the loss?
Believe it or not, I would say Coach John Calipari for the Kentucky Wildcats. Now, that's not to take anything away from Wisconsin. They played an incredible game. They exploited every mismatch they created. Bo Ryan did an outstanding job of really matching up and playing an NBA style of basketball game. They just created mismatches, and then after that they exploited it, and Kentucky seemed ill-equipped to do anything about it. There were times when Sam Decker had someone considerably smaller or slower on him. The same could be said for Frank Kaminsky, whether it be with picks or screens or things of that nature. Somehow, some way, they were able to create mismatches, and they exploited them. And Koenig, the guard, stepped up. He hit some big shots. Only hit 4 shots on the evening, but they were big shots that he hit. Nigel Hayes did his job. So you don't want to take anything away from Wisconsin. They showed up. But when I look at this matchup, first of all, congratulations to Coach John Calipari being inducted into the Hall of Fame. He deserves it. We know he's a great coach. We know he did a great job, except on Saturday night. He did not show up as far as I'm concerned. It's not the John Calipari that I've known from the days of UMass and Memphis and the John Calipari that's been at Kentucky. They were down 6. They were down 9. They were down 11. Somehow, some way, the Kentucky Wildcats, Skip Bayless, continued to march on, kept storming back. And then when they were up by about 4 and they were in control, he took his foot off the pedal, had his troops take their foot off the gas. He wasn't the John Calipari that I've known and loved for almost 20 years. He seemed to be playing coaching not to lose instead of to win. You get the ball, the Karl Anthony Towns. You find a way to get that man the ball. It's just that simple. You don't let the Harrison twins try to take over and jack up shots. Against Notre Dame, when stuff got tight, John Calipari said, forget my 10 deep, forget, the level of unselfishness that we've been, disseminating to the masses about us in terms of who we are and what our persona is. We've got a big boy that Notre Dame simply can't stop. get him the ball, and let's go home and let's march on to Indianapolis for the Final Four. When he got to Indianapolis, he did not do that against Wisconsin. I thought that he panicked a little bit. He just took his foot off the gas. He was a bit reticent, a bit apprehensive and timid. He wasn't the John Calipari that I know. And as a result, they ended up having 2 shot clock violations after they were up 4. We hadn't seen that from them all year. And I think he spent entirely too many times, Skip, in the weeks leading up to the NCAA tournament, or dare I say the Final Four, preparing us all for the potential of an imminent loss instead of giving the attitude we're going to get a national championship. That's what we're after. I don't know John Calipari to be that man, but that is how he came across this Saturday night when the game got tight, particularly, and he was coaching up against Wisconsin. It's nothing that doesn't take away anything from his greatness or whatever, but I told you before the tournament even began, Skip, there are 2 categories of greatness. There's the regular level of greatness that great coaches accomplish, and then there's that upper pantheon, the Mount Rushmore of college coaches. And what happens then is somehow, some way, in a particular season, you are the giant. You are the guy everybody's gunning for. And it's not about hope. It's about expectations. And the coach that answers that call is the one that elevates themselves to the next level. We saw Bob Knight do it in the past. We saw Mike Krzyzewski do it at least once. We saw Dean Smith do it. We saw Roy Williams do it. We did not see John Calipari do that as of yet, where he was the guy that was favored. No excuses, athleticism, perimeter shooting, size, depth, all of this stuff. You had it at your disposal, and you blew it. This one, to me, is on John Calipari. I'm sorry.
I do appreciate the fact that you went on record with that before this tournament started, and you said it's all about John Calipari. You're going to hold him responsible one way or the other. So I appreciate the fact you're digging in and saying, I'm going to hold his feet to the fire today, because I tweeted right at the end of that game, he got out-coached by a Bo Ryan, who obviously coaches his team better than John was able to coach his team down the stretch. Obviously, Bo Ryan has been coaching his players a lot longer than John has been coaching his players. But before I get into my whys, allow me to say I have been dead wrong about Wisconsin twice in a row. I thought they would lose to Arizona in their rematch of the regional final. Wrong. And I thought they would lose to Kentucky, and I was pretty sure about that one. And I was dead wrong about that. Now, back to Kerry's question. Most responsible? I'll give you Calipari, but I want to point out, Stephen A., that Wisconsin was all but begging to be beaten on Saturday night throughout most of the second half. I want to point out to anyone who lost sight of this, from the 14:46 mark in the second half all the way down to 4:28 left in the game, Wisconsin managed to score 4 points. Now, wouldn't you think Kentucky could close that deal? Because Kentucky was D'ing up the way I've called them the greatest defensive team I've seen, because of their length and their quickness and their commitment to playing defense. Those kids were locking down Wisconsin for 10 straight minutes and had a 4-point lead with 6:37 to go. Karl Anthony Towns scores, and it's 60-56 Kentucky. Wouldn't you think end of story? Wouldn't you think done deal? Wouldn't you think time for final nails in Wisconsin's coffin? Not literally, but figuratively. And yet, 5 straight times Kentucky had the basketball, and 5 straight times came up with 0 points, not even a free throw. Are you kidding me? So Kentucky goes from the 6:37 mark all the way down to 56 seconds left in the game and scored 0 over that time. Now, if Calipari's team had played this way all year long, choking down the stretch, didn't know how to close the game, I'd say, well, there they went again. No, this is what they did best. This is the team that I was betting on here, because The best thing they did was close the deal. What did they do against Notre Dame? When push came to shove and they're down 48-46, they score their last 9 shots. They make 9 in a row. Are you kidding me? So I thought one of the Harrisons, Andrew, Aaron, Karl Anthony Towns, somebody closed the deal.
Right.
Nobody could close the deal. I will point out, in defense of Calipari, at one point he pulled Andrew, the point guard, out of the game and lectured him for just a brief moment on the bench, and I think he was saying, I'm telling you, post the basketball. Get it inside. I was tweet screaming, post up Karl Anthony, and they didn't appear to have that play in the playbook. Like, just clear side, clear the bottom of the lane, get Trey Lyles out of there so his defender's out of there, and just post him up because Wisconsin was saying, Kaminsky can take him. One-on-one. I don't think Kaminsky could have guarded him one-on-one in an ISO situation. And I've said this to you all year. Devin Booker's going to be a lottery pick. How do you not get him more Steph Curry-style shots in that game? Pick for him. He's got the sweetest jumper in college basketball. And then in the end, as you know, they finally said, well, Aaron's done it before, so let's go 1-4. Let's spread our 4 people across the baseline and let Aaron go from the top. Well, the problem is, the bottom gets pretty clogged when you go 1-4. And I'm not sure Aaron is that explosive off the dribble. I don't know. He did make the 3-point play that got him back in the game briefly. But I'm with you. It's somewhere between the point guard and the head coach. And yet this was so out of character for this Kentucky team. I've seen them close so many. Remember the game the night we were down in Carolina? They played, we watched on ESPN, Kentucky at LSU. They just took the game over late, and it was a hard place to win. So I'm saying that this was just a bad night for Kentucky. It was.
Well, it was a bad night for Kentucky, Skip Bayless, and we're not sitting up here that's saying John Calipari can't coach. We know that he's proven to be a great coach and a great recruiter, and there's nothing here to knock his credentials. But it's because of that greatness why he has to be held accountable, because it was called upon for his greatness to step up and shine in the face of that level of adversity. And it didn't happen.
It didn't.
There have been many occasions over this season and over the last couple of years where we've seen things transpire. This is the same John Calipari, for example, and you're forced to harken back to the national championship game that they actually won at Kentucky, with him having Anthony Davis at his disposal. This is an Anthony Davis who we all look at and say has the potential to be the best player in the world within the next 2 years, if not sooner, because of the arsenal that he has at his disposal, playing both ends of the floor. This is a guy that had 2 points at halftime in the national championship game, if I remember correctly. And if I remember correctly, Skip Bayless, back then, even back then, John Calipari was saying, well, you know what? You got to play within things. You don't try to do too much. When everybody was looking at him saying, we need more from him, for crying out loud. You've got greatness like that at your disposal. You know, now people are questioning, excuse me, did they win in spite of him or because of him? You've got the Harrison twins. You've got Karl Anthony Towns. Willie Cauley-Stein gives you nothing on the offensive end of the floor, but he's elite defensively, even though he was neutralized to some degree on Saturday. Like you said, a Devin Booker, a Trey Lyles, and these boys. You know, Tyler Ulis. You had all of these guys at your disposal. It required coaching, because you weren't going to see that one of the Harrison twins come to the rescue, or Tyler Ulis or Booker come to the rescue. Sometimes it's about getting away from the mercurial or the sensational and getting down to bare bones coaching. Fundamental basketball. I've got the big horses. Find a way to stop them. We know that we can't stop y'all on the perimeter. Decker at 6'9" with a handle but can hit perimeter shots. Kaminsky with his versatility on the offensive end of the floor. But defensively, they were not going to have any answers for the horses you threw in their direction. It called upon John Calipari to step up. I saw him in the hotel after, yesterday, actually, Skip. My congratulations to him for a great season, 38 wins. My congratulations to him for making the Hall. I'm not going to sit there and throw salt in the wound. It is what it is. But I'm sure he saw me and he saw what I had to say, and I'm sure he's hearing about it now if he's not watching. In the end, this was a moment where he simply didn't step up. It's not to sit there and excoriate his resume or him as an individual, as a great coach. No, that's cemented. That's established. But this was his opportunity to elevate his stature to an even more elite level. And he dropped the ball because his players, even though they weren't at their best, Skip, they overcame deficits. When they weren't flowing offensively, they got in the lockdown mode. And that's what they did. They shut Wisconsin's offense down. Where did it get them? Nowhere, because their coach got timid. Why? I don't know. But that the man that was coach got timid. That's not John Calipari. I don't know. That's not the one I know.
Okay, last quick point. From a psychological perspective, I thought Kentucky dug a little bit of a hole at tip-off. I happened to be watching the Kentucky feed featuring Rex Chapman doing the commentary, and he quickly pointed out that before opening tip-off, a number of the Kentucky players did not or refused to shake the hands of the Wisconsin players. You are lighting and fueling that fire. You better be careful with that because it can come off as obviously arrogant, condescending, however you want to write it off.
I don't understand. What are you talking about, Skip? What are you talking about? I'm fueling the fire. I don't understand. What do you mean?
No, they are. If you refuse to if Kentucky's kids refuse to shake their hands, it can really fuel the fire of Wisconsin. And I also thought that the non-call on Trey Lyles when he went across the face of Gosser.
That's right.
I thought that refueled the fire because I thought Wisconsin just said, okay, watch this. We're going to take this game from you right now.
That should have been a flagrant one. How nothing happened from that, I don't know what the referees could say to explain that away. Trey Lyles should have definitely been hit with at least a flagrant one. That's number one. Number two, what happened after the game, after they lost, where you had the Kentucky Wildcats engage in a flagrant level of classlessness, refusing to shake Wisconsin's hand.
They did.
After the game. You know, all of this stuff we've been hearing about, and don't get me wrong, none of us disagree. They were selfless. They were unselfish. They were classy. They were professional. They were all of these laudables that we threw out about them all year long. And in one night, they erased all of it.
They did.
Because when they lost, they showed no class whatsoever, and they should have been ashamed of themselves for acting that way.
Yep.
All right, so you guys are passing out blame. Coach Cal with the bulk of it for Stephen A. and all of it for Stephen A. and the bulk for you. Let's talk about who's going to win the game. Wisconsin and Duke will meet for the national championship after the Blue Devils beat the Badgers earlier this season. This will be the fourth time Coach K has faced the #1 seed in the national championship game. He's lost the previous 3. Coach K on the #1 seed.
They can score from every position. Usually an efficient offense means that you can't help off of anybody, and it gives room for each of the really good players to have more room to operate. And then they don't turn it over, so they hit free throws at a high percentage. So they put pressure on you the entire time. They're just a very difficult team to defend.
All right, they're a very difficult team to defend. So, Stephen A., who wins tonight?
Wow. I've been talking about Jahlil Okafor all year long. I think he's the #1 overall pick in this upcoming NBA draft. I think he's an unstoppable big man in the post in college basketball. But I'm rolling with Wisconsin, Skip Bayless. I'm picking Wisconsin, to win this game. I just look at their versatility. I look at the combination of Kaminsky and Decker. I look at the fact that the Quinn Cooks of the world, that's not who you're going to be guarding. You're going to have to deal with these guys. And I'm just saying to myself that it's going to come down to me. Duke wins this game as much as I love Justice Winslow, and he has really upped his game. And these brothers can ball. Him, Cook, Tyus Jones, the whole bit. I just believe it's going to come down to Okafor. And he's got to do 2 things. He's got to dominate while staying out of foul trouble, and he's got to hit free throws. And I haven't seen him hit that many free throws all season long, shooting at about a 51% clip. And I'm just of the mindset that the only way Duke would win this game is if Okafor completely dominated. And I think that Kaminsky and Decker, that combination is going to have something to say about it. It's going to be a thriller, but I do believe it's going to come down to who can hit free throws. And if they send Jahlil Okafor to the line, which I believe they will, because they can't stop him any other way, he's going to have to hit free throws, which means I'm going to have to put my money on Jahlil Okafor hitting free throws. And as much as I love him and think that he's the best big man in the game, #1 overall draft pick, I definitely want the Knicks to get him. I just can't put my money on him making free throws to win a national championship. If it were not for that, I'd pick Duke. But because of that, I'm rolling with Wisconsin.
So wait a second. You want your Knicks to get a guy who can't make fourth quarter free throws, who's a fourth quarter down the stretch liability.
Well, that's like,
I don't get it.
That's like asking me would I want DeAndre Jordan. Yes, I would.
Okay.
I would. He can't hit free throws. I understand he's got to work on it, and I believe it'll get better. But that doesn't take away from the other great components of Jahlil Okafor's game. I'm not apologizing for that.
Okay. Karl Anthony Towns is an 85% free throw shooter, but I'll leave that alone.
Karl Anthony Towns has suspect legs. He better build up his legs, I'm telling you.
Okay.
Jahlil Okafor don't have that problem. He's a big man's big man.
Look. You are probably right about picking Wisconsin. I am in awe of the role they're on, a pick and roll role that they are on. These guys are a tight-knit group. They seem to love each other on and off the floor, love playing with each other, love hanging with each other. They have a good time until it's time to have a better time on the basketball court. How can I argue against anything they have done so far? Even Decker, a 30% three-point shooter during the season, is now a 50-plus three-point shooter in money time. How can I argue against that? How can I argue against the game that Frank Kaminsky had against that daunting Kentucky front line? Kaminsky goes 20 and 11, and he has a couple of blocks, and he only has 3 fouls? Are you kidding me? How can I argue against that? And yet, right after the game, I tweeted, Stephen A., that this is a letdown for me, that I thought Kentucky-Duke would have been an epic final. And guess who retweeted that?
Who?
Sam Decker.
Oh.
Interesting. So I have now fueled the fire, so I've helped Wisconsin in that regard. So to me, it would actually be unfair for me to pick Wisconsin today. Like, I owe them this much. I owe them not picking them today to continue to fuel their fire. I had Duke in the final. I had them going farther than Wisconsin, obviously. I'm going to pick Duke. I don't have a good argument for you, except if we can hark back to that game, and it was forever. It feels like it was 4 years ago, but back on December 3rd, in Madison, Wisconsin, Duke won 80-70 at Wisconsin in their Kohl Center, 80-70. And the freshman Tyus Jones went for 22 in that game, 7 out of 11, made 2 out of 3 threes. I think Tyus Jones is going to have the big night tonight. We always find that it's always that 6-foot guy who becomes the one shining moment guy. Obviously, Shabazz Napier, we go back to Mateen Cleaves. And very quietly, I think the 6-foot guy who's been one shining moment has been Tyus Jones. But he gets overshadowed by Jahlil and Justice Winslow, who, by the way, Justice Winslow, he's looking like the 3rd overall pick in the draft to me right now. That's how good he is. So he'll be slashing and dashing. Tyus will make some threes. I think Koenig won't have quite the quickness to deal with Tyus Jones. Jahlil will just be Jahlil. I don't love him as a defender, but he's just a big body, and I think he'll score some. I think he'll get some down low, and hopefully he could get Kaminsky in just a little bit of foul trouble. Maybe he could get him to 4. I'm going to go Duke 70-68. And I don't love it. I wouldn't bet a penny on it, but I'm going with Duke because I had them in my final.
If I could do imitation, Skip, I'd be shaking my head and raising my eyebrows and doing all of this other stuff because I barely understand a damn word you said. I mean, let me get this straight. You're picking Duke instead of Wisconsin because you owe it to Wisconsin not to pick them?
Yeah, I've been off their bandwagon.
I think I understand that's what you said.
I don't want to jinx them. Yeah. If I just jump on the bandwagon, it'll just look petty to me.
What do you mean you don't want to jinx them? So what do you mean you don't want to jinx them? Now you care about their feelings? Since when?
Since when? I've been rough on them, man. I haven't given them any respect all the way up to this point, and they've earned a lot of my respect. but I'm going to go with Coach K. I'm just going to go with Coach K. That's all I got.
So let me get this straight. You owe them your respect, not to jinx them. But if Duke were to beat them for the national title, you then come on the air and say, see, I told you.
Well,
so that makes them feel better?
The Wisconsin website has been tweeting about my tweet about what a letdown this game is. Oh, sorry about that. So my point is, if I suddenly pick Wisconsin, it's like they're saying, oh, if you can't beat us, join us. I'm going to just stay. I'm going to hang in there. I had Duke. I'm not going to be a hypocrite and just jump on the back of the bandwagon like Aaron Rodgers does. And where was he on Saturday night?
Did you see Aaron?
Where was he? Aaron Rodgers. He jumped off the bandwagon? Where's Olivia?
I'm sure that he was gone and preoccupied and all likelihood about to bet my money. It had something to do with Olivia.
He had better things to do.
I certainly understand.
Kentucky guard Andrew Harrison apologized early Sunday morning for uttering an obscenity and a racial slur about Wisconsin's Frank Kaminsky. A live microphone captured Harrison's comment when teammate Karl Anthony Towns was asked about Kaminsky during Saturday night's post-game news conference. After Wisconsin's victory over the Wildcats, Harrison also phoned Kaminsky and said that the two of them had a, quote, good conversation, and he wished Kaminsky good luck in Monday night's championship game against Duke. Harrison issued the following apology on Twitter. First, I want to apologize for my poor choice of words used in jest towards a player I respect and know. When I realized how this could be perceived, I immediately called Big Frank to apologize and let him know I didn't mean any disrespect. We had a good conversation, and I wished him good luck in the championship game Monday. Frank Kaminsky, and Bo Ryan both asked about what, in fact, Harrison said. They said they talked, they moved on, they're focused on tonight's game. Stephen A., your reaction to what Harrison had to say?
Well, first of all, I thought it was obviously something that was incendiary and inflammatory and very, very foolish for him to say. That's number one. He did the right thing by immediately apologizing on Twitter, picking up the phone and calling Frank Kaminsky and explaining himself. I also want to applaud Mr. Kaminsky and Coach Bo Ryan for how they conducted themselves and how they responded to the apology, and they're moving forward. They've got a national championship to win. They don't need to be preoccupied with something like this. What came across to me more than anything else was Harrison was being a sore loser. Everything was fine when they were 38-0. But now that they're 38-1 and they lost an opportunity to win a national championship, it's a bit of sour grapes, and that was his initial reaction. Clearly, the word that he used, the racial epithet, obviously we live in a society where we become, our level of sensitivity is heightened significantly, and that's not something that you should be doing. But I also feel the need and an obligation to point out that if you are a young African-American male, it is something that is said all the time. It is something that is communicated amongst one another all the time. And that it is something that, while it needs to be eradicated from our vernacular, is something that repeatedly gets stated, and it is not meant in the context that an African American would embrace it or inhale it as if it were coming from someone white. Now, I understand that there are a lot of people in America that are a bit put off about that. They are a bit offended by that notion. What I would implore everybody to do is to get over that. That is a reality that you're never going to escape from an historical perspective, and we understand why the word is so heinous, why it's the worst word in the history of language, according to you, Skip Bayless. We understand why that is. We know what the N-word is associated with from an historical perspective, and without even getting into the specifics, we also know who made the word heinous and why that is. So if it were somebody white that was willing to articulate and elocute the N-word towards someone black, it would be embraced, inhaled, and taken in an entirely different context than it is coming from a black individual, particularly when you're an African American, and we've got young African Americans out here communicating while using that word all the time. It's not to excuse it. A gentleman by the name of John Wooten, for example, Skip, he and I have had our differences on this issue in the past, but we do not disagree on the fact that it needs to be completely eliminated from the American lexicon. We understand that. But the reality is that there are a lot of young African American males that use that word religiously, and this was just another example. I mean, him using the N-word, it could have easily been replaced with bleep that MFer, okay? Yep. Because that's the context in which he meant it. That's what I took from it. We need to understand that let him know that you can't do that, that you shouldn't be doing that, that you were wrong. But we need to also understand and appreciate the fact that it would have been entirely different if somebody white had said that about Harrison or a black player. That's just the reality.
We're on the same page here. I'm trying to keep this in context, and I personally, and this is my 2 cents, I did not consider this a big deal. I considered this a kid, a 20-year-old, who had just had his emotions crushed, his undefeated emotions, and trust me, he knew in his heart of hearts he was maybe primarily responsible as the point guard for their collapse down the stretch. So he's sitting at the dais with the mic on, but he's trying to speak under his breath, and he's hurt, and he's angry, and he's extremely frustrated, and the question is going to require Karl Anthony Towns, sitting I think to his right, to give a complimentary answer about how great Kaminsky played. So he tries to mutter or utter something this way that he does not think is going to get picked up, and it was barely audible. I'm still not sure, but I get it, because he apologized for it, so he knew that validated that he said something he knew he should not have said. But he said it, and then he leaped to Twitter to apologize profusely for it. Good for him. And he called Kaminsky, an acquaintance of his, to say, hey, whatever, put it in the context of, I didn't mean it this way or that way. Now, again, this is my 2 cents as a white guy. I don't consider that word a racial slur. I'm sorry, I don't, for all the reasons we've talked about many, many times on this show. You can go to epithet, I get that. I don't think he should have uttered that in an NCAA press conference setting, moments after a game. I personally found the first word he used in the public context much worse than the second word. That's just me. If you're going to use the F word publicly, that's completely out of bounds for a college kid, and he knows that. The other word, again, you and I have talked about this repeatedly on this show. We've had Michael Eric Dyson on, the Georgetown professor, the author, the commentator. I communicated with Michael Eric Dyson last night, and he continues to remind me that some in the black community, even though there's a split on this, have, to quote Michael, hijacked that word, drained the poison from that N-word that ended with the hard ER, which I've told you is the most evil word in the history of our language. But the black community, some, drained it of its poison and made it, in certain cases, a term of black-to-black endearment, and then in certain cases, just sort of a catch-all word. As Michael Eric said last night, he could have used the word dude in place of that word, and it would have been the same thing to the kid.
Sure.
Now, do I know what's in the kid's heart? I don't. And on face value, just at a glance, we do have a black player using that word ending in A about the white leader of a team that starts 4 white players. So at a glance, to your point, Stephen A., I'm sure some white people sat back like, wow, that seems a little out of bounds. I don't think it was, because I don't consider it a black to white racial slur. I want to caution the white kids. Please don't get the idea that means it's okay for you to use that word back to black kids, because it's not. And as Michael Eric Dyson always says, when's the best time to use that? When's the only time? Never.
Yeah.
You can never use that word that way. So I want to drive home that point, because some people are going to be a little mixed up about, wait a minute, what does this all mean? It gets a little murky. But I think it just spilled out of his mouth, and he apologized for it, and Kaminsky clearly accepted the apology. Sure, he's heard the word quite a few times, and moved on. So no big deal, but I'm happy we could have this conversation to sort of put it in our perspective.
Let me ask you a question. Do you think Frank Kaminsky, and Stephen A., this is for you too, do you think Frank Kaminsky, the reason why it wasn't a big deal with Frank Kaminsky, because he got it. He knew where Andrew Harrison was coming from. You called him, quote unquote, he was being a sore loser, so to speak. Do you feel as if Kaminsky knew that?
I don't know, because I don't know Kaminsky at all. I've never even met him, so I can't dare to speculate. I'd surmise that he may have understood it, but at the same time, you just never know. All I'm saying is that I think, Skip, to piggyback off to your point, when Dr. Michael Eric Dyson, who I know and respect, and obviously yourself and so many others, and we've had this conversation, I think the important point to get out of all of this is that it's not just about eradicating the word, it's why it's important to eradicate the word. It's important because even though black folks talk to ourselves, we talk amongst one another, and sometimes we use the word. I've used the word in the past. Obviously, Mike Wilbon, we did a special for ESPN. He articulated how he does, how so many guys do. All of us as individuals who are black, when we get together, sometimes that word gets spewed. There's no question about that. But the reason why you've got the Dr. Michael Eric Dysons, myself, and so many others who have sort of, just transformed our mode of thinking to some degree, for lack of a better phraseology or word, is simply because we understand that now people outside of the black community are looking at that as an excuse to think for 1 second that they could use that word, particularly when they address us. And I'm here to tell you that is not going to fly. Not just with me, not just with a Dr. Michael Eric Dyson, but if you think for 1 second some young white kid can go in a black neighborhood and he can spew that word, I got news for you. It's going to be a problem. And so as a result of it, you just want to make sure that you disseminate the message that, again, one of the biggest reasons, no matter what level of term of endearment or whatever excuse we want to use for using the word, the reason why our mode of thinking needs to change in that regard is simply because you don't want people outside of the black community thinking it's okay for them to use it, because it will not be.
Last quick point. Here's where I'm not going to give this young man a pass. I do think that even out of frustration that Andrew Harrison was being, to a fault, dismissive and disrespectful of Frank Kaminsky's game, just of his game. And again,
I agree.
Sore loser, however you... It's just out of bounds. It's just you talked about how they, for the first time all year, showed little to no class, maybe with lack of pregame and postgame handshakes. Well, there it was. There was the big exclamation point on no class, was taking that kind of shot at Kaminsky's game, even though did he really mean it in his heart of hearts?
No. There's a rumor that will not go away in Tennessee. Chargers quarterback Phillip Rivers to the Titans for the 2nd overall pick in the draft. It's a question, that according to the Tennessean. Here's the quote: Rivers isn't signing a new contract with the Chargers, meaning his future with the team is uncertain. Rivers reportedly wouldn't want to move to Los Angeles along with the Chargers if they leave for San Diego. And the Chargers may want a quarterback they can be sure is there for the long run, and not just for one more year. The Chargers are interested in Mariota. San Diego has scheduled a workout for Mariota, which wouldn't make a lot of sense if the Chargers weren't considering trading up to get him. Phillip Rivers also on the record saying that he really has a good relationship with the head coach in Tennessee because it used to be the Chargers OC. So we're going to talk about this rumor. Good move or bad move, if in fact this is supposed to happen. Joining us now is our NFL analyst, first time on the show, Teddy Bruschi. Welcome to have you.
It's been a while, actually.
Oh, you've been, okay, before I got here. Before I got here.
Yes, I'm pre-champion.
Pre-champion.
And by the way, this show didn't start until champion came on.
Yeah, by the way, thank you very much. So it's a new show. Stephen A.
Stephen A., what up?
Indy.
Oh, what's going on, big time? What's going on, man?
Good to see you. Good to see you.
Good to see you, bro.
I'm going to start with Bayless first. Okay?
My name is Skip, actually.
Bayless first. Is it a good move or bad move?
To me, this would be an all-time steal for the Tennessee Titans. I would think that Ken Wisenhunt and staff are on knees praying right now that the Chargers would make this mistake. I'm not sold on Mariota yet as the 2nd overall pick in the draft, and even if he does live up to that high of a pick, it's going to take some time. So to me, obviously, Phillip Rivers doesn't have your rings that he can flash because he has none of them, but he's still only 33 years of age. He's made 5 Pro Bowls. I know they slid off the map at the end of the year. They lost 3 of their last 4. Maybe Mike McCoy is finally saying, I've just had enough of this. I got to try something else.
Yes.
But, hey, Phillip Rivers, tomorrow, if this thing happened, would put Tennessee right back on the national map. It would be just what the doctor ordered for the guy, Ken Wisenhunt, who was his offensive coordinator in 2013. So I would love this move for the Titans.
Mettenberger's not the answer in Tennessee. That's the thing. people debate whether, wow, if they gave him a little bit more of a chance, he could develop into a quarterback. From what I saw from him last year, sketchy in the pocket, poor decision-making, holding on the ball too long, and basically when it was a perfect situation, still inaccurate throws. So I think they know that Mettenberger doesn't show that promise to be that quarterback, so Tennessee needs a quarterback. And Whisenhunt, I don't think he is the guy for Mariota. Because Whisenhunt, I think he's got Kurt Warner on his brain, all right, that old veteran, immobile quarterback that I made into almost all the way. I mean, taking him to the next level. Kurt Warner almost winning that Super Bowl, but it would be the answer for Tennessee. I think that's a great match for Whisenhunt over there, okay? And Mariota needs an offensive coordinator that's flexible enough and creative enough to take him to the next level, and I think that's McCoy.
Oh, okay.
And that's
so
McCoy.
You think it'd be a good
for both?
And I do. I think it'd be a good trade for both. I think Phillip Rivers is sort of spent in San Diego. They had their push with Tomlinson in 06 and 07. They had their chance. They failed. They've been struggling ever since. I think he needs to change the scenery. He needs to go back to Whisenhunt, who he has history with, and Mariota there to the number 2 overall pick to them. I think that's perfect. West Coast, Oregon to San Diego. You're keeping the kid close to home also, as close as he can be in Hawaii. I think it'd be a great situation for him.
All right, Stephen A.
Well, listen, I don't think either Skip nor Teddy are wrong in terms of the deal being something that would benefit both squads. I definitely think that Phillip Rivers could use a change of scenery, and I think Marcus Mariota would excel better in San Diego than he would in Tennessee. My only question to Phillip Rivers is, where do you think going to Tennessee is going to get you? Bishop Sankey can play. I understand that Delaney Walker was your leading receiver as the tight end spot with 106 receptions. Kendall Wright is no scrub, but I guess I'm just looking at Tennessee, and I'm simply not moved. They were awful on both sides.
Well, that's how much we thought of that football knowledge.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
They were awful on both sides of the ball.
But all I'm saying to y'all is that I'm really not sold on Phillip Rivers in terms of him being a game changer in Tennessee. I think they'd still stink. All I'm saying, because I don't know if Whisenhunt is the right guy, and I certainly think from a roster perspective, I don't know. I mean, they've got so much work to do. To me, it wouldn't make that big of a difference. I respect the heck out of Phillip Rivers. He's thrown for more than 4,000 yards in 6 of the last 7 seasons. That's to be commended and respected. But he's got a 4-5 record in the 9 playoff games he's played in. He's advanced to the conference championship game just once. Outside of that, he hasn't really made any noise, and he's 33. It's not like he's done or anything like that. It's just that they need so much. If I'm Phillip Rivers and I've been in the league this long and I've done all the things that I've done, I want to be in a better situation than going to a team that's 2-14 from last year. That's just me. But again, I don't blame Tennessee for wanting them, because the quarterback is the most important position on the field, and they clearly need one. And I don't blame San Diego for going in that direction when it's clear that Phillip Rivers isn't really sold on them moving forward, and they may want just a change themselves, adding a different dimension to what they're doing in a rookie like Marcus Mariota with somebody who's been challenged in terms of whether or not he's an innovative mind, but some others have said he can be a bit innovative when he chooses in Coach Mike McCoy.
Let me just tell you the way they're thinking in Tennessee as players, all right? Zach Mettenberger, Jake Locker, Vince Young. We haven't had anyone in here since, you got to look all the way back to Steve McNair. And I think the immediate impact by Phillip Rivers going to Tennessee would be, all of a sudden those players are going to believe that finally we got somebody back there. He's older, yes. All right, he hasn't won Super Bowls, yes. But we finally think we got somebody that knows what they're doing. And that's going to raise the play of every single player in that locker room. That's why it might even be a better situation for Tennessee. Were they terrible? Yes. Is Mettenberger not the answer? No, he's not the answer. But you're bringing me a guy now that I can believe in, that I've seen play before, and he's a statue in the pocket, yes. But he stands, he battles, he's still a very accurate passer, productive. We got a chance now. At least we can win. We got a chance to win 8 games.
Okay,
we'll start there.
Give us some insight. You faced and defended Phillip Rivers at a high level in some big playoff games. What makes him tick? How difficult was he to defend?
Well, Phillip Rivers, the biggest thing with Phillip is his mentality, is his intensity. He's got an ugly delivery, Okay? He's slow. He lumbers back there. He stands there. But you'll be all over his pocket, all over in the pocket, grabbing on his ankles, trying to bring him down, but he'll still find a way to throw the ball. As ugly as it may look, the end result still can be very, very pretty in terms of
talking trash to Brewski.
That's all he did. Okay?
All he did?
All he did was talk trash, and that type of intensity that Phillip has, and we've all seen it on TV. Okay, even if you watch from afar, is what I think the Titans need.
Yeah.
I mean, rather than a quarterback that's just thinking all about his own job and what I have to do and try to throw. I'm a rookie. I don't know what I'm doing. Jake Locker's gone now. Mettenberger's now the answer. Now there's a guy there that commands the entire team, and then you'll look to him.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
We know Phillip Rivers can play. 33 years of age, no Super Bowl titles or anything like that. Coming to this particular situation, are we saying that Phillip Rivers is worth a number 2 overall pick in an NFL draft, period? Or are we saying it's because it's the Tennessee Titans and that's an ideal situation for the Titans? They're so desperate, he's just worth it for them.
In this situation, Phillip is worth the number 2 pick overall in the draft because Wiz doesn't want to have to work with Mariota, in my opinion, because he doesn't have the time. Because I need to turn you into a quarterback that I want you to be, and I may be fired in 2 years if I fail at that. So Phillip's going to come in, and immediately I'm going to have him help me fix my problems. From minicamp to training camp, my problems may already be fixed, rather than trying to change a quarterback into what I want. I think that's why Phillip Rivers is worth this pick. And right now, let's not talk about championships for the Tennessee Titans. I'm not even close to talking about a championship for this team, even if they get Phillip Rivers. But I'm talking about them finally being competitive if they have a Phillip Rivers, and that's what everyone will finally get a chance to do.
Wouldn't you agree that that's one division that could lend itself to a fairly quick turnaround if you caught a wave? You could
absolutely with the Colts being there, of course, but
the Colts
absolutely, you would immediately become competitive, and that would bring new life, and that's just the whole point.
But Teddy, why is Marcus Mariota such a good fit for the Chargers? They have the time?
Because of McCoy and what he's done in the past with the quarterbacks that he's had. He's worked with various quarterbacks like Tim Tebow and had to be creative from Tebow to Peyton. So he's shown the type of flexibility that I have a plan already for a quarterback like Mariota. I don't think Wiz would have to make some adjustments, more than McCoy would have to, in my opinion.
All right. Always an education, Teddy Brewski. I appreciate it. Apparently you've been on the show before I got here. Teddy Brewski, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
The Cavs walked away with the win over the Bulls on Sunday, 99-94. The basketball gods were on their side, so says Joakim Noah. And during that fourth quarter yesterday, you may have remembered LeBron and Joakim were exchanging words again. No new thing here. It appears Noah is essentially saying that LeBron is soft. The two have a very public dislike for one another. So I wasn't necessarily surprised, but I want to know what you make of it, Skip.
You weren't surprised,
No, I wasn't. But what do you make of it?
Stephen A., once again, I got a great kick out of this. Of course, I like it because I have talked to several players over the years who actually agree with Joakim on this, but would never dare to say so publicly. In fact, Noah seems to be the only one in the NBA who regularly, consistently expresses himself publicly in his disdain for LeBron and his softness, if you will. The problem I have with this is that Joakim has never been able to back it up when it really matters, because Joakim's teams have lost 3 postseason series to LeBron's teams, 1 in Cleveland, 2 in Miami, 4-1 each time. And his Bulls, you recall, in Miami, each time won the first game of those series, 1 home, 1 away, and proceeded to get blown out 4 straight games not blown out in each game, but blown out in the series, 4 straight, both times. So that means that Joakim in the postseason is now 3-12 against LeBron James. And yet he continues to spout off, I would love to see him in the postseason this year. And I was disappointed in the Bulls' effort yesterday. They looked a little lethargic, a little deadheaded to me. But when J.R. Smith is making 7 threes and a record 18 tries with no two-point tries, and when Kyrie is suddenly throwing one up from God knows how far that was beyond half court and swishing that, after a while you just kind of shrug and say next, because it was Cleveland's day to make three-point shots. The Bulls hung in as best they could. No, it was fair. But I do give the Bulls a shot in the postseason, and in part I give them a shot because of Noah's continued defiance of the godlike LeBron James. So I personally get a kick out of this.
Well, I mean, if you love sports and you love the theater of sports, of course you get the kick out of it. But I don't think it's as simplistic as that, to be quite honest with you. I think that when you look at it, first of all, there are a lot of people, by and large, who are jealous of LeBron James. Let's just call that what it is. They are jealous. Joakim Noah is not one of those people, in my estimation. That's not he's not built that way. I think that he does have a relatively healthy dislike for LeBron James, because I think that Joakim Noah has that old school mentality, and he views LeBron James as someone who stacks the deck, that basically positions himself and puts himself in a position where he benefits from the assistance of others, as opposed to being tried, true, and tested and being on your grind and working your way up, essentially sticking with your situation. Leaving for Cleveland to go to Miami with D. Wade and Bosh. Remember, it was Joakim Noah that used the comment. He said they're very good, they're talented, they're Hollywood as hell, but they are what they are. That's what he had said about them back then. You know, then LeBron comes back, but you come back and Kyrie's there, and you acquire Kevin Love, and then ultimately JR and Amon Shumpert is there. And so they look at it from that perspective. I don't believe there's a strong degree of accuracy to it. And the only thing that I would say is that it's one thing to dislike LeBron. It's one thing to be jealous of LeBron. And again, that's not Noah. That's other people jealous of LeBron James' success, monetary value, his business savvy, jealous of all of those things. That's not Joakim Noah. I think it's about the stacking of the deck and putting yourself in a position where you walk into or you inherit a winning situation, as opposed to helping create it. I think that's where Joakim Noah looks at LeBron James. The only thing that I have a real problem with, Skip, with a lot of these guys is, and you are right, there are a lot of guys that call LeBron soft or whatever. He's not the one who wants to take the winning shot. He's the one that wants to defer. He's not the one that wants to embrace or accept superstar status. I don't necessarily agree with that based on what I've seen over the last few years. I don't agree with that about LeBron, but I will tell you what I emphatically disagree with: when folks call him soft. LeBron James is a lot of things. I don't think soft is one of them. When you look at the way that he plays, when you look at how hard he goes to the basket, when you look at who he's willing to challenge, he's not soft. When you look at the fact that he's a legit 240, 250, 250 pounds at 6'8", he's not soft. And a lot of these guys talk, some of this stuff is fighting words. And are we really sure that any of these dudes can beat up LeBron James? I'm not. I mean, it's like, you listen to people sometimes, man, and it's like, do you understand who you're talking about here? And again, we're not talking about, again, I understand what they're trying to say. I don't agree with them when they think that the deck is stacked. I think if you look at LeBron's history, I think he does work through a lot of things that he's not given credit for. But this is what they say about him, and that's their opinion. I don't think it's founded on any degree of legitimacy, but that's their business. But when you go the route of soft, not only is it wrong, it's disrespectful, and it's fighting words. And these guys talk a lot of junk, but I don't see anybody really interested legitimately in going toe-to-toe with LeBron. You can push him on the ground if you're Nazi Muhammad in that series against Chicago years back. You could be somebody like Noah who talks and can back it up, by the way, with respect to him. You could be a lot of these guys. But the interesting part about the basketball court, Skip, is that chances are you might get a chance to throw a blow or two, but you ain't going to really be able to get in a fight. Because if you were going to get into a fight, have you seen LeBron James? He just doesn't look like the kind of guy that you want to walk up to and start a fight with. So everybody can talk about being soft or whatever the case may be. LeBron's just not going to get himself ejected. But LeBron's out in the streets a lot. He walks away from the game a lot. I've never recalled an incident, and you know I hear a lot, but I've never recalled of an incident where any of these players are away from the basketball court, away from referees, away from players to stop physical confrontations that may take place. I've never heard of anybody rolling up to LeBron James and saying, let's fight. Nope, I haven't seen that. Didn't hear about that. So soft, people need to pump the brakes there.
Okay.
Really.
2 quick points. Joakim is not saying physically soft, I don't think. This is just my take on this. He's talking about mentally or psychologically soft. So I don't think he's questioning his physical toughness
I'm not talking about Joakim Noah. I'm talking about other people who are quick to talk to you and me and others and disrespect them.
I got you. Now, are you leaping to the conclusion that Joakim would not dare to challenge, and not that it would ever come to this, nor are we advocating this, but if it did, are you saying Joakim would have no chance against LeBron James in a fight?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that LeBron James is not the kind of person that you look at and say, let's get it on. It doesn't go down like that because there are no guarantees you won't get hurt.
Yeah.
LeBron can hurt a lot of people if he wanted to, even on the basketball court. Even on the basketball court.
This is just
he can hurt a lot of people.
Joakim and LeBron, and I don't think Joakim is afraid of LeBron James. That's just me. Maybe he should be, but I don't think he is.
I'm not saying he is.
Okay, got it.
Geico presents Strange Saving Stories. Astronomers detected an interstellar transmission. It stated, Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. The implications were staggering. Was the cosmos telling us we could all save hundreds on car insurance with Geico? Or did their radar merely pick up a signal from the nearby Rufus and Clyde's morning show? We may never know.
Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
Back to college ball. Jahlil Okafor had a huge night in the national semifinal against Michigan State, putting up 18 on 7 and 11 shooting, 6 rebounds. Our ESPN insider Jeff Goodman spoke with some NBA scouts after the game on Saturday, and they gushed over the potential #1 overall pick in the upcoming draft. One scout said he proved he is the top pick. He was mobile, aggressive, and dominant. Another scout added he's the most NBA-ready player in the draft, and he showed that tonight. Okafor and Duke face Wisconsin in the national championship game tonight, we've been talking about. So let's talk about the game tonight, Skip. Is there anything that you believe Jahlil Okafor can do to change your mind, that he is the #1 pick in the draft?
Before I answer that question, quick thought on the fight. Stephen A., my favorite tweet of Saturday night right after the game was 38-1 tonight. 47-1 May 2nd.
And by the way,
get that?
It was,
get it?
Yeah, of course. And I retweeted it a million times.
Who tweeted that?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Who tweeted that?
Skip. I said leave it to Skip.
Oh.
Of course. Of course.
Okay, now back to business. Back to the question. What can Jahlil Okafor do to convince me tonight? #1, he can get to the free throw line and make 8 out of 8 free throws. How about that, Jahlil? You being a 51% free throw shooter, which scares me to death. How about Jahlil tonight going for 12 rebounds instead of his usual 8 or so, or the 6 he went for, only 6, in Madison, Wisconsin back on December 3rd when Duke did win 80-70. Need a few more rebounds because I don't see enough from you, big man. Then how about a little defense tonight on a Frank Kaminsky, who went for 20 and 11 against that Kentucky front line. Those are hugely impressive numbers. How about holding them at least under 20 and under 10 rebounds? That would be a start, because he's going to be yours for most of the night, I'm thinking. And then how about getting Frank Kaminsky in just a little bit of foul trouble? He wound up, Kaminsky, because Wisconsin does not foul. That's the greatest thing Bo Ryan has taught his team, how not to foul. They have the fewest fouls in the country leading into Saturday night, obviously. And for Kaminsky to end that game playing so physically in the post against Karl Anthony Towns and whoever else he might have been guarding at the moment, 3 fouls? Okay, Jahlil, you got the best big man footwork we've ever seen in a young player. You're still 19 years of age. I want to see you get 4 fouls on him. Make him sweat a little bit. Make Bo sweat with him. Maybe make him sit a little bit down the stretch. That's what I need to see, because, Stephen A., I don't see enough free throw shooting, rebounding, and defense to say this is a clear-cut, bona fide, slam dunk #1 pick in the draft.
Well, first of all, there's nothing that's going to convince you, because if all else fails, your ultimate argument will be, I have the courage of my convictions. I've been saying Karl Anthony Towns for weeks, and I'm not going to change my mind. So the answer to be, there's nothing that Jahlil Okafor could do that's going to change your mind, Skip, because you're not in the modification. That's just not who you are. But
that's not
to
true.
play the devil's advocate, I will say this. Jahlil Okafor is big time. Him going to the free throw line will do a lot to elevate the level of interest in him. As far as I'm concerned, it should still already be there. He's my #1 overall pick. I'm just going with that. Defensively, I gotta be mindful of how the game is transpiring and what's going on. Kaminsky has the ability to pull him away from the basket because he can shoot. Jahlil is not going to want to go out there because he's a big man's big man. He's not trying to guard anybody on the perimeter. So if he's not trying to do that, it's problematic, because either Kaminsky's going to get open shots, or if Jahlil comes out and grabs him, he's going to be able to blow right by Jahlil Okafor. Not to mention the fact that Jahlil Okafor has to be mindful of the fact that if he goes out of the game, what do you have to put into the lineup against Wisconsin? Plumlee and those boys, that's not going to cut it.
No.
You need Jahlil Okafor on the floor. So we got to be careful not to judge him based on the numbers that are generated against him, because he may be being out there just to survive late in the game. So he's an option to go into when it's money time, because money time is going to be incredibly important in this particular encounter, and those are all the things we need to take into consideration. To me, the one thing that I would like to see from Jahlil Okafor more than anything, Skip, hit your free throws. He's going to get his offensive opportunities. He's going to get some shots. He's going to have an opportunity to have an impact. All right? But two things I need to see from him is to, A, hit free throws, and B, patrol the paint. If people are going to score, let them score because they're hitting perimeter shots. But when it comes to your 7-foot body being down low, patrol the paint to make sure cats are not scoring inside. Skip, you'll remember this. I harken back to when Patrick Ewing went up in the national championship game against North Carolina. When he was a freshman, Patrick Ewing was so hyped, so excited, like the first 6 or 7 shots practically were goaltend calls.
They were.
Because he was going up there and trying to snatch everything out the air. And John Thompson had to pull him to the side and say,
oh, no.
Whoops.
Loving it. That was Patrick Ewing, as excited as he was also sending the message, nothing is happening in here. Whatever y'all gonna do, it better be out there, because you are not coming inside. And he sent that message, and it resonated for the rest of his college career. He played in 3 national title games, won 1, lost to North Carolina and Georgia, lost to Villanova when they played the perfect game. But his reputation preceded him, because as a freshman on the biggest stage in the college basketball world, Patrick Ewing showed up and said, this is my lane. Nothing is coming in here. And I think that it would be great if Jahlil Okafor established that, although we haven't seen that from him this year, because he's got offensive prowess. He's got a ways to go defensively.
No, I agree. And I thought John Thompson coached that. I thought that was premeditated. We want to send early messages here with your swoop blocks. We just want to say, hey, even though these are blatant goaltends, we're going to plant the psychological seeds in your head. I better.
He still had to calm him down, though. Because I'm quite sure he didn't mean for Ewing to do it like the first 6 or 7 times.
Okay. So since you have accused me of never being objective,
go ahead.
I was disappointed in Karl Anthony Towns on Saturday night. I was also, to your point earlier in the show, very disappointed in either John Calipari or Andrew Harrison, whoever's fault it was that the ball didn't go into a low post situation in an ISO where he could wheel and deal just by himself on Frank Kaminsky. But He wasn't impressive. Now, I could hark back to the old line about Michael Jordan when he was at North Carolina. There was only one man who could stop Michael Jordan, and that was Dean Smith, or Dean Smith's system or offense. And in some ways, I felt like John Calipari stopped Karl Anthony Towns. Like they just didn't get him the ball where he needed the ball. And then when he got it late in the game, he did some very good things that got them the lead, and he did some not so good things when he had to force the ball up. You brought up earlier his legs. He's 19 years old. I'm having to project here. This is why a lot of people in the NBA want these kids to stay for 2 years at least, so they can take a harder, longer look at them and see them mature into men, so they can make a better call on them, on their pro prospects. But in this case, I'm having to guess, and I see a lot more games so far in Karl Anthony than I do in Jaleel.
I got you. I disagree with that. I disagree with that at all, because to me, Karl Anthony Towns, I mean, they're saying he's got a perimeter shot and all of this stuff. We'll see what happens. And I know he's got incredible upside. We're just talking about being number one, number two. I'm going with Jaleel Okafor with my number one pick if it's me. I'm just doing it.
Okay. I'm going with Karl Anthony, but I'm going with Duke tonight. How about that?
Our NBA, yes, how about that? Our NBA insider, Chad Ford, says many are looking for the Okafor-Kaminsky matchup, but another one to look for is Winslow and Decker.
Oh, boy, that would be hellacious.
Hellacious? Ooh. Some say it's the best MVP race in years, but according to one poll, it may not be as competitive as we once thought. Our ESPN.com forecast surveys show the award will easily go to Steph Curry. When asked who will win MVP, more than 80% voted for Curry, 18% for James Harden, and only 1% for Russell Westbrook. We should note, though, Harden did get more support on the question of who should win the MVP. Curry still out on top, though. Does this poll surprise you, Bayless?
Stephen A., I was shocked and disappointed by this poll. This is my pet peeve. I know you've been a voter for years and years in these kinds of polls, and also in who wins MVP. Why do we have to decide it prematurely? I know that's the age we live in. It's instantaneous news. We have to be ahead of we actually have to make the news before the news gets made. So in this case, we can't even let the regular season conclude with the greatest MVP race I can remember in, I don't know, I haven't gone back and put a pencil to it, but Kerry just mentioned it. It's the greatest in a long time. We have three newcomers, three rising superstars just duking it out and shooting it out night after night. And yesterday afternoon in Oklahoma City, we had an Old West-style shootout between Russell Westbrook and James Harden. Westbrook finally, he's been having a little trouble from the three-point range, but he finally made a big one to tie the game. And it was great theater because James Harden said no back in his old house in Oklahoma City. And don't get me started on how the Thunder managed to trade James Harden because they didn't want to pay the luxury tax.
Don't do it.
Because they would have a championship by now, I believe. But that's a whole other issue. All of a sudden, James Harden said no. 2 threes he made and a step back Jay and did his little I'm cooking, and it was something a sight to behold. It was an MVP caliber performance. But I'm going to remind everybody out there and everybody who participated in this poll, James Harden has to face my San Antonio Spurs twice this week. One in San Antonio, day off, one in Houston. That could be for the division title and a very lofty seed because my Spurs are still within striking distance, just 2 games back of the Houston Rockets. James is mostly having to do it without a whole lot of Dwight, as in Dwight Howard. We saw flashes of Dwight yesterday. He can still dunk when you lob it to him up above the rim. Otherwise, he doesn't participate much, doesn't contribute very much. So, can we at least see those 2 games to see how he fares? Because I got to tell you, even though Steph Curry has been out of sight, out of mind to the poll now, I'm happy with the outcome because Steph has earned much of his MVP credentials to date, the respect that he's getting. And just a quick thought, he hasn't been playing many fourth quarters, but I got to tell you, last night in San Antonio, if you happen to be watching this, Spurs way up at halftime. I was surprised that Steph even got on the floor in the third quarter, and he proceeded to pull off one of the great salvos I've ever seen, Stephen A. Smith. 3 threes, and a step-back 21-footer and a driving way up off the glass layup, and all of a sudden he cut an insurmountable lead down to 14. And I'm thinking, wow. Of course, my Spurs pulled away because that's what they've been doing lately.
Of course,
and they won
now you're okay.
easily. I forget what it was, 107 to 92. But that's what they have been doing lately. My point is, Steph deserves the respect he's getting, but so does James, and it ain't over yet. Let's see how James fares against arguably the hottest team in the league right now, my San Antonio Spurs. Is that fair? Is that too much to ask?
That's not too much to ask at all. I completely agree with you, but I also want to make sure we understand, if I read the polls correctly, they're talking about what's likely going to happen as opposed to what should happen. And so what they're saying is they're projecting that media and other folk who's going to vote will probably lean towards Steph Curry, because despite the fact that James Harden has carried the Houston Rockets on his back, literally, figuratively, etc., without the services of Dwight Howard for most of the season, how could you not give it to Steph Curry? Because they're 10 games better than the Houston Rockets. He's the best player on the best team, and that's the thinking. So, again, we want to let it play out, because who knows what could happen, even though Golden State will have the #1 seed. But what Harden is doing right now, I got to admit to you, I couldn't vote against Harden because I think what he's done has been sensational. As Charles Barkley asked me the other day, because he's here at the Final Four, he said, name one player outside of Dwight Howard that James Harden is playing with. Now, obviously, people like myself can think about Trevor Ariza and beyond, but most people wouldn't even know. And so you got to take that in consideration when you're looking at James Harden. So it is what it is. We understand it. We understand the thinking. The best player on the best team usually should get it. In that case, particularly if it's somebody that's never gotten it before, in this particular instance, it would be Steph Curry, although to me, it should be a lot closer between him and Harden in any poll, whether it's what people are going to do or what people should do. The number should be a hell of a lot closer than 80 to 18%. Skip, on another note, I'd like to ask you this question, though. You are somebody that repeatedly complains and whines about the San Antonio Spurs and how friendly they are when they're losing. I saw Greg Popovich, Steve Kerr, Tim Duncan, and all of those guys hugging last night. I've never had a problem with these things, but I didn't hear you complaining about that today.
Now, where did this come? This is a left field shot.
Because I saw them hugging.
Okay,
it's something you complain about, which I think is really petty.
I'm complaining when they lose and he goes and hugs and makes jokes with the other coach after they lost their ninth close game of the year, and
what I'm saying is, Steve Curry,
predicament they're in right now.
Forget that. I'm saying Steve Kerr hugged Popovich. Did you have a problem with that?
I don't like Golden State. I don't care about Golden State.
So it's only because you like San Antonio that you hate
I like San Antonio.
So you're not
I want San Antonio to beat Golden State because they will beat Golden State.
You're not against it. You're just against your Spurs doing it because you don't like it when your Spurs do it. But you're not against the whole thing.
On Steve Kerr's part, it was phony sincerity because remember that sideline huddle the last time San Antonio played at Golden State? The game Golden State blew out my Spurs in, and Steve Kerr was captured on tape. I heard it because it got played on television as saying, they're old. He's shouting at his players, the Spurs are old. Well, Steve, how old did they look last night? How old did Danny Green look? How old did Kawhi look? How old did Bellinelli look? I can keep going down the line. They don't look that old to me, but that's just me. I didn't think Tim Duncan looked very old last night.
That's all I wanted to get out of you. Thank you for answering my question.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
The Spurs.
Touche.
Yeah, what they've been doing, coming back lately. They're back in it, right?
I think they got a shot now.
Okay, you like them.
Oh, wait, last quick point.
Sure.
They cannot win it without Tiago Splitter, and he's going to laugh. Tiago Splitter is the glue for this team, and he is the glue on defense, passing the basketball, making the offense click. It's all about Tiago Splitter, and you laugh if you don't know the Spurs, but that's the God's truth.
Okay, so Alabama has offered its men's basketball job to former NBA player and head coach Avery Johnson. That according to our Jeff Whitman. Johnson verbally agreed to take the head coaching job there. The two sides, from my understanding, are still working out the contract details. Avery has been an analyst with our network since being let go by the Brooklyn Nets in December 2012. Much of his time in the NBA as a player was with the San Antonio Spurs. So, Stephen A., your reaction when you heard he got hired?
I was a little surprised, not shocked, a little surprised and saddened, to be quite honest with you. Avery Johnson is a guy that took the Dallas Mavericks to the NBA Finals against Miami in 2006. He had one season. That season, he won 60 games, won 60 and 22, and went to the NBA Finals. The next year, he went 67 and 15, even though they lost in the first round. His last year in Dallas, he went 51 and 31. Over 4 years, 4 complete seasons in Dallas as the head coach, the man won 73% of his games. Now, obviously, that got tarnished a little bit because he had two losing seasons in Brooklyn. First in New Jersey, then they moved to Brooklyn, and then that third year, he was 14 and 14 before they made a decision to move on and go in a different direction and put P.J. Carlesimo in there. But I say all of that to say that I'm a bit saddened because I think that when you have the credentials that Avery Johnson has and you're relegated to accepting a college coaching job at a program, first of all, that's a football school, and it will always be a football school. Secondly, they have never won a national championship. They've never even gone to a Final Four in the program's history. And you would take a job there speaks, Skip, profoundly to the plight of that some African-American coaches out there have been lamenting. I talked about it on my radio show on Sirius XM Mad Dog Sports Radio on the 1 to 3 every weekday. I talked about that last week when I highlighted the fact that of the 25 coaches that have been replaced, 12 were black, that the numbers of African-American coaches are dissipating, that black coaches, African-American coaches out there are incredibly concerned about what their future is looking like because of a willingness for programs as well as professional franchises to go the route of, of old school coaches or with these new school guys that have a background in analytics, and that's not a lot of these African American coaches. So they're wondering where they fit in. And I had 3 black coaches, Skip, call me just last night, 2 in the NBA and 1 on the collegiate level, called me just last night right here in Indianapolis, telling me, Stephen A., what you're seeing is something that's going to happen more often. You're going to see black coaches, even black coaches on the professional levels, transitioning to the collegiate level, because in the world of professional sports and colleges to some degree, they're not feeling as secure as they once were. They're like, don't let Shaka Smart fool you. Yeah, he got the job at Texas. It's an absolutely wonderful job. But they also highlighted, had that been another coach with his record, his level of success, they would have easily gotten about $3.5 million a year. It really rubbed people the wrong way that he only got $17 million for 6 years from a school like Texas, reaped in oil money, got a bunch of alumni members with huge, deep pockets. It's a first-rate program with first-rate facilities, but you gave Shaka Smart second status dollars. They looked at it that way, and they're concerned. And I think that Avery Johnson accepting the Alabama job is indicative of those concerns, because considering what he's accomplished in his career, if you're going to go from the NBA to college, you would think he would have gotten an offer from a better program than this. But that's the situation right now, and that's why I said I'm a little bit sad.
Yeah, I agree with you. Shaka got shortchanged. But are you telling me on Avery's account that he probably felt some pressure to accept this job?
I'm saying to you that Avery Johnson didn't know if there was going to be another offer out there for him to be a head coach, whether it be on the professional level or the collegiate ranks in the near future, based on the way things are going.
Well, I don't know the details of this, but I would like to think, I would hope that Avery at least got in the ballpark of what Greg Marshall got offered to take the Alabama job before he chose to stay at Wichita.
Sure.
I have my doubts about that. I have no idea what the exact dollars and cents are here, but I have my doubts. But I also think, if I can look at this glass as half full, I think Avery is going to surprise, if not shock, some people with the job he does at Alabama, the football school.
Of course.
Avery, as we all know, we all love him. We've worked with him. I've known him forever. He has high charisma. He is a lightning rod, and I think it will serve him well in recruiting young men. Obviously, in pro basketball, he never got to recruit anybody.
Right.
But he got to coach them, and we know he has a high basketball IQ, first demonstrated as the point guard of a San Antonio Spurs team that won a championship. So he is very well suited to this. The only point I feel sorry for Avery on, he's now going to have to coach against his son, who plays for Texas A&M, and I don't think Avery will love that. I don't think either one of them will love that. But it is what it is, and they're going to have to just sort of suck it up and deal with it twice a year. I guess they play twice a year, maybe 3 times if they saw each other in the postseason. But the point is, even though it's a football school, I think Avery has a chance to become a little bit of Avery Saban here, like to start to build a program that would be a national power. I just think because he knows the ropes in pro basketball, and I think some of the better kids in the next couple of classes might say, hey, Avery could show me how to get to the next level, and he can put words in for me at the next level, because he's very close, as we know. Avery's very close with Coach Popovich, like this close, speak almost every day. So you've got lots of pipelines to lots of NBA cities and coaches, and I think it'll serve Avery well. So again, he got relegated to a job I think he could hit a home run in. That's just a gut feeling.
Well, you also got to, first of all, I think he can hit a home run because I think he's very knowledgeable about the game of basketball, and they call it an act. I'll say his personality may have worn thin with some professional athletes, guaranteed millions. That's not going to be the case in college basketball. The coach is the program, so we understand that. But also keep in mind that he's got Southern roots. Went to Southern, got Louisiana roots. I mean, he speaks that language. Not that it's the folks in the South, he's one of them.
He is.
So I definitely think that's going to help him. It's just that Alabama is, it's about football. Basketball is almost an afterthought, if not literally an afterthought.
But he
can help elevate that. He can help elevate that. I'm talking about at Alabama. I'm talking about at Alabama.
Stephen A., they have had their moments. I went to Vanderbilt, obviously, in the SEC, and I know it's a long time ago, but even when I was at Vanderbilt, they were really good under, I think it was C.M. Newton, but they've had their moments. It's possible. It's doable. You have to sort of win back over the student body to come to our games. Fill up our place and let's make it crazy.
By hiring him, that's what they say they want to do.
I believe that's
what I'm saying.
By hiring Avery Johnson, they want to do that. You mentioned what they offered Greg Marshall earlier this week. It was $4 million per year. We don't know, again, the details of the contract, but hopefully it meets that. Go ahead, Stephen A.
Keep in mind one other important thing as well. Auburn has a guy by the name of Bruce Pearl, who also worked for our network. Bruce Pearl can coach some basketball. And by the way, he can be a hell of a recruiter. Auburn and Alabama ain't too far apart. Avery's got to recruit against that man, too. Not to mention Billy Donovan in Florida, not to mention Cal at Kentucky. I mean, look, it's not going to be easy is all I'm trying to say.
It's not, but I got a feeling.
Again, you heard me say it, baseball is back. The Cardinals beat the Cubs 3-0 last night in the season opener, and several teams open their 2015 campaign today. According to Westgate Superbook in Vegas, Washington is the favorite to win it all with 5-1 odds. Los Angeles is second at 6-1, and St. Louis is third at 8-1. The highest American League teams are Seattle and LA at 12-1. Who wins the World Series this season? Bayless.
Champion, Smith. My heart says the team that I grew up loving, the St. Louis Cardinals, who did have a nice opening night win 3-0 against John Lester and the arch rival Chicago Cubs at Wrigley Field. But my head says I got to go with the chalk. I got to go with the Washington Nationals, Stephen A., even though they're just 5-1. But when you add Scherzer on top of Zimmerman, on top of Strasburg, on top of Gio Gonzalez, on top of Pfister, it's just too much starting pitching. And maybe for once, this is the year that Bryce Harper is not voted the most overrated player in baseball. Maybe he starts actually living up, starting now, to what we all thought that he would be from the start. Your thoughts?
Skip Bayless, I was thinking the Washington Nationals as well, because when they picked up Scherzer, I'm like, who's going to deal with them? This pitching is just absolutely nothing short of sensational. But then I think about the St. Louis Cardinals, sitting down talking with Mike Matheny, the manager for the St. Louis Cardinals, understanding that they still have Wayne Wright and Lyndon Miller and these boys. But then you couple that with the fact that you got Yadier Molina behind the plate, calling the game, Skip, knowing how to manage pitches better than most. I have to go with St. Louis. I still can't give them the edge. Washington Nationals hitting is still suspect. Their ability to play small ball, still suspect. And I'm sorry, I just like Matheny. I like what he does with his staff. I like the fact that you've got Molina behind home plate. We know that the catcher's position is arguably the most important position on the field on a day-to-day basis. That pitcher's on the mound, that's that one pitcher, but that's once every 5 days. That catcher behind the plate calling the games matters. He keeps guys healthy. He understands their strengths and weaknesses, knows how to manage and call a game, and there's nobody better than Molina in my estimation. I've got to go with St. Louis, Skip. That's just how I feel about it.
So, wait a second. So you hang out with everybody in the NBA, and now you're sitting down and hanging out with Mike Matheny on top of all that?
He's big time.
Yes.
Wow. How did you pull that off?
He came on my show.
Oh, he came on your show. I thought you guys,
No.
Broke bread.
He came on my show.
Broke bread.
Okay.
He came on my show. We talked, and we'll talk throughout the year because I respect that man.
Okay. Well, my final thought on this is I'm tempted to change my pick to the San Diego Padres after the 11th hour stunner they pulled off last night, getting Greg Kimbrell on top of everything they've already done in the offseason. They have gone from 60-1 in Vegas to 20-1. I think they're going to make some noise.
Let me say this to you, Skip, as an aside. I'm giving neither New York teams a chance at winning the World Series this year. I just want to throw that out there, okay?
Good.
And Boston will be helped offensively, particularly picking up Hanley Ramirez and Pablo Sandoval. In that right field, it'll be easier for them to hit home runs.
Good.
Their offense will improve in Boston.
Good.
But I'm still
National
going with St. Louis.
championship game tonight. Skip says it's going to be Duke. Stephen A. says Wisconsin. We discuss tomorrow. Also on the show tomorrow, Wale and Flo Rida. We'll see you at 10 a.m. Eastern on ESPN2. Big day. Thanks for listening to the podcast. You can catch First Take Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 Pacific on ESPN2.
ESPN Radio.
With the action on the court, the diamond, or the gridiron.
Comes alive.
The NBA.
The San Antonio Spurs are the world champions.
Major League Baseball.
San Francisco Giants are the champions of the baseball world.
A new college football playoff.
College football playoff national champions, the Ohio State Buckeyes.
Your home for the best in sports play-by-play.
ESPN Radio.
Two of baseball's best go head-to-head in interleague action when the Tigers head to St. Louis to face the Cardinals.
That one is gone.
The pregame at 7 Eastern, first pitch at 8, Sunday on ESPN and ESPN Radio.